We have a question from Carl.
Okay.
I'm wondering if privilege is a handicap to awakened intelligence. Sometimes it seems people in positions of wealth and power don't need to bother being wise. They can get by stomping around the world and getting whatever they want. Do you ever feel that way?
I do feel that way about privilege sometimes. Yes, I do. I've certainly seen that. I agree. In fact, Gandhi said when he was asked what made him the saddest in the world, he said the hardness of heart of the very wealthy and of the very privileged.
Mm, mm,
Wow, you know?
mm,
So, yes, I think uh, people can be very temporarily um, drunk on their privilege,
mm,
such that they don't have to bother. They think they don't have to bother. But they often have a very big humbling on the way.
mm,
And how the mighty do fall. They have a big humbling often coming. And, they will be subjected to a lot of loss. The more they have, the more they'll lose. And and along the way, they're hoarding it and guarding it and taking care of it and having to deal with people who are only relating to them based on the stuff or the privilege or the power or the position or the fame. So, you know, one of my dear friends, Sharon, said about the Dharma and about how she said, everybody ends up with us eventually. That, that there's a Dharma reckoning if you're a halfway intelligent person, uh, that will come along, and
mm,
and one doesn't wish it on anyone. It's, I agree that it is kind of it's not one of the most compassion-inducing conditions to see someone in great privilege who has very little compassion or empathy and who is smug. It doesn't induce a lot of compassion. But when you see them fall, or you see them ill, or you see them having just lost somebody, then the compassion can easily arise.
yeah. Although some people feel schadenfreude, they feel glad to see the great fallen.
Yeah, that's true. People do, but I think from awakened intelligence, you don't particularly, especially if you're up close to that
Mm-hmm,
person, you actually see the suffering. Um,
mm-hmm.
you and I were watching the Tudors on television, and I was struck with how many times along the way, because there were so many beheadings, how many times along the way that this sort of bad guy is about to be beheaded, and you feel so sorry for them. So, yes.
Well, relating to the question of wealth and power, I'm
Mm-hmm.
interested to know what you think about ambition and
Uh-huh.
competition,
Yeah.
which seem to be almost inevitable
Mm-hmm.
factors
Mm-hmm.
in life,
Yeah.
in material life.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to be competitive and ambitious and have maintaining this awakened intelligence?
Well, I mean, I think competitiveness and ambition both arise, according to one's sort of tendencies and nature, more or less on their own.
Hmm.
So, one thing about both of those conditions is they have with them quite a bit of pain.
Hmm.
At least I find that. I find that when I'm relating to someone from a competitive point of view, or I'm feeling my own ambition driving me, it's not comfortable. I don't
Hmm.
really like it. So again, I usually try to let those feelings just pass through and not be overly indulged.
Hmm.
And I will sometimes reflect on something. Like, let's say I'm feeling competitive about someone. I might have reflections that help me mitigate that feeling of competitiveness,
Hmm.
um, that have to do with this person too will suffer, this person too will lose,
Hmm. Hmm.
and move my heart into a more soft space
Hmm.
um, with regard to that person. That they have their own struggles that I know not of.
Right.
Um, and the same with ambition, which is certainly related. um, I have been asked this question hundreds of times in Dharma dialogues, and what I often say is that as you go deeper into awakened awareness, into an awakened intelligence, what you used to rely on through ambition, you start to rely more on creativity that actually wants to be of help. You want to be, like I said the other night in Dharma Dialogues, you want to be well-used compost. You'd like to be, um, you'd like to be, have a sense that your life is of some service to others, not just yourself, but anyone else. It doesn't have to be a big crowd either, but just that your life, like they say, there are all these studies that show that older people will live longer if they have a pet, even if they have plants. Even if they're just taking care of plants, that their life is giving of itself. Now, one would imagine you're not that ambitious taking care of plants or a dog, but there's something incredibly fulfilling about it. And so I really recommend moving into more the sense of fulfillment, of the feelings of being of service, of the sweetness of heart that comes with that, that trumps what is usually associated with ambition, which has to do with the aggrandizement of me, right? The aggrandizement of my talent and who I am and my name and all of that. That's often what I think of when I hear the word ambition. People who want to make a name for themselves. It's even said there in the phrase, and wanting some way that they're remembered after death, perhaps, and so on. I really recommend, don't worry about being remembered after death. Very few of us will be. Amazingly, astonishingly fast that you're forgotten and that no one remembers you, like none. Like after the people who know you right now, unless you have a book that transcends time, which very few people are having now.
Right.
Like the biggest books and the most incredible bestsellers are in the dustbin of history very quickly now. 15 years later, 20 years later maybe.
True.
And
True.
so I don't know what it is that any of us would be doing that would garner this posthumous memory, but I would just recommend, no matter, even if that were the case, likely not, but even if it were, I would not be living this life for that. The enjoyment and the beauty that you will experience in service here in this life, the sweetness, the love that comes back to you, and that you become kind of in a circle of generosity, is much more fulfilling than anything that you might get from an ambitious thrust of your name in lights.
Right. Right.